So, for those who don't know, can you explain a little bit, like, what is Bitsensor? Like, what is TAO? What makes you really excited about it? So I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, so it's transitioning over to the Bittensor stuff. So it's very much like early Bitcoin, where it's like, you ask 10 different people and you get, 15 different answers. But I'll give you sort of my sort of for dummies version. Um, so instead of a product department, right, in a company, imagine instead of sort of hiring a bunch of people in your company, you make a list of tasks. And AI devs, agents, AI agents, claws, and raw GPU from all over the earth compete to complete your task the best and the fastest. And a Bitcoin like blockchain rewards the winners with newly minted tokens. That in a nutshell is Bittensor, right? So the idea is, like, let's make a new Bitcoin. Let's make something with 21 million only TAO, right? TAO is the coin. So there's 21 million only. It is emitted at exactly the same schedule as Bitcoin, right? So it's 2013 in Bittensor world right now, right? If you put it in Bitcoin terms. So there's 10.5 coins that have been emitted to date. And the value is roughly the same as Bitcoin was in 2013 also. So it's roughly $300, which is kind of wild, right? So it's following almost exactly the same trajectory, just sort of, a decade or so later. Um, and the other thing that's different about it is that, so what are these contests? Well, they're all mostly crunching AI problems, right? So the network itself, the blockchain, the act of mining is mining intelligence. It's mining AI. And I'll get into specifics on that in a second, but just know that the idea is that it's proof of useful work, right? With Bitcoin, when you find the hash of the previous block, um, that is incredibly valuable in terms of demonstrating in aggregate the Bitcoin network's computational dominance. It's Earth's largest supercomputer, right, by 500 times its nearest competitor. So that's extremely valuable for securing the transactions on the blockchain. However, what it's actually doing is really dumb. It's basically guessing the number of gumballs in the jar, right? When it's trying to find the hash of the previous block, it's just guessing. It's like, huh, what about this? What about that one? What about this one? It's unwrapping Wonka bars like incredibly fast, right? And if you have the most money, you could be like Veruca Salt and have just like a room of guys opening Wonka bars, right, looking for the hash. And it's kind of dumb, right? Like that doesn't really produce anything other than maybe a golden ticket, right? So whereas in Bittensor, the act of trying to win the Wonka ticket is actually producing a lot of useful stuff and a lot of AI, right? Like, um, so the idea here is also that, because it's proof of useful work. You right now it takes a lot of it is mined through human brains, right? So it's not just it's not just like Claude producing Claude. It's not AI producing AI. A lot of times there are humans watching what's going on. They're mining with their human intelligence and tweaking things. It's Claude assisted, or it's AI assisted, but it's largely human ingenuity that's being mined. So I like to say that um what Bitcoin did for stranded energy, BitTensor does for stranded talent. So if you're somewhere on Earth, you can be someone anywhere on Earth, and if you're the smartest, you can go into the BitTensor universe, find a subnet, and these whole things. The network is divided up into subnets. Each one is a different AI project. That's the way to think of it. And so if you are, a hyper intelligent person, but you're stranded in some country somewhere where there is no Silicon Valley, but you've got access to a Starlink and a computer. You can apply your smarts and start competing and winning in a subnet. And if you're the best in the world, you can actually start winning contests pretty regularly. You might be able to even make millions in a couple week period. That's actually happened before, right? So if you're incredibly smart and competitive and contributing a lot of intelligence to the network, you can do extraordinarily well. So, any questions on that so far?
Yeah, I'll go real quick. I'm curious. So it's a UTXO based chain, correct?
Mm,
No.
no, no, it is not. It
Okay.
is
So it's not a fork of
substrate.
Bitcoin. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
it's not. Sorry, yeah, it's not a fork of Bitcoin. because there are a lot of things that it does that the Bitcoin, raw code can't do. It shares the tokenomic design, but it is not UTXO based. So
And
Okay.
it's not EVM based either.
no, it's not even. Well, it has an EVM layer, but it is
Okay.
not. It's substrate, so it was like it's like a Polkadot fork basically.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of weird, right? And
Okay.
it's got its own thinking on it. You cannot use a EVM wallet, the native wallet for it, you have to get a BitTensor wallet, and it's got its own, it's got its own thing going on. But it basically, the wallets used to be pretty ganky up until like 3 months ago, like hard to use, like very early Bitcoin wallets, or
Because
like the
everyone's on
Geth
the
wallet was in Ethereum, right? Remember that? I don't know if you guys were around for that period of time, but yeah, it
because
was pretty
everyone's
painful.
on a centralized exchange, right? There's no DEX for TAO yet, so there's been no need for the wallets really, right? Because
Well,
everyone's
so I
on.
mean, so again, things in BitTensor are a little weird, right? So it's unlike anything else. There is, in fact, a DEX inside of BitTensor. And here's what's
Oh,
weird about it: there is a Uniswap already, and I say that in air quotes. Well, actually, it is technically truly Uniswap implemented directly on the chain. So it's a canonical Uniswap, and the reason for that is that each subnet is paired with the TAO token in this canonical Uniswap in the liquidity pools. So, and what happens is that TAO and subnet tokens are emitted into the liquidity pool of this canonical Uniswap, and that is how a new subnet is born. So there's one TAO and I think it's two subnet tokens. That's how everything starts. There's like no liquidity, right? And you're like, well, how do I trade it? And the answer is you don't until it grows enough liquidity for it to be reasonable, right? And because at least at first, it's like it's like throwing a boulder into a puddle trying to get in, and
yeah,
this defeats the whales. Right. This is great because you know how remember the ICO craze? All these
Yes.
whales would come in and like slurp everything up before anybody got anything. Right.
mm,
That can't happen here. The whales try to come in. There's not enough liquidity. Right. So they have to wait until it boots up. Right. It has to naturally grow into its liquidity, which it took like a year for the liquidity to get reasonable. We've just gone through that year. So once again, for a fair launch, you need patience and non-greed, and that's very rare. Like most other chains don't have that, right?
That's
So
brilliant.
and the
yeah, it's kind
liquidity
of
grows by people completing these tasks and getting rewards in these subnet tokens. And
yes,
so when you get the reward, it's automatic. You're getting an LP unit basically right away, or you're automatically in the
yes,
liquidity
that
pool.
is a great way to think of it. Yes, you're getting an
Um,
LP token effectively. Yeah, because
okay.
so here's a piece I haven't talked about yet. So in order to get subnet tokens, you must stake tau into this liquidity pool. There is no other way to get these tokens. So what does that mean? So it's very unlike any other chain, right? Most chains like with Ethereum or Solana or something, you have the gas token and then you have like stuff built on top of it, right? That is economically completely disconnected from the gas token. All the subnet tokens in Bittensor are basically rehypothecated tau because tau must be staked to get subnet tokens. Now, the liquidity pools grow or shrink depending on the amount of demand there is for the subnet tokens, right? Makes sense.
Hmm.
So if I put 10, let's say I put one tau in and I get 10 subnet tokens back, and if that subnet, the valuation of it, the market cap goes up wildly compared to all the other subnets. Let's say this one becomes worth 50% of all the subnets. Well, I come back with my 10 subnet tokens, I might get 100 tau back, right? Because the liquidity pool has grown. A lot other people have come and put stake tau in, right? So now if I come and cash out, I get a lot more tau back. But the other flip side of that is that if you believe in Bittensor, but you don't know which of the 128 subnets are going to take off, you can buy the S&P 500 by just owning Tau, right? Because if any of them take off, if any of the subnets take off, you're going to ride up with them with just by owning Tau. Fractionally, of course, you would have done a lot better if you just owned that subnet directly. But owning the S&P 500, if Tesla goes crazy, it still drags the S&P 500 up with it, right? Like to
Yeah.
a certain degree. So it's like that,
It's
right?
it's really TAO and these subnet TAO paired with the subnet tokens is the exact same idea as Rune paired with all these different cryptos in the pool.
Yes. Yeah,
Rune
it
is
is very
like the
similar.
S&P 500 of crypto. So very interesting. So the okay, back to these subnets. Apologies, Mark. My smooth brain, lizard brain, needs some time to catch up. So each subnet token is unique. Each subnet is unique.
Yep.
And sorry, what is unique about each one? Like they're doing different tasks. They're solving like yeah.
Yeah.
Why are they
Each
different? Yeah. Why do they have value?
Yeah, so let's talk about
Yeah.
specifically what some of them are doing, and I've sort of stayed away from that because I wanted to, do the theoretical thing first. But
Yeah.
all right, let's get down. What
Yeah.
the hell are they really doing? Right? Is it
Yeah.
just bullshit or is it real? So, and completely fair question. So let's just start reading them off. So first up, we've got actually let's start with the star of the moment, Templar Subnet 4. So if you and I, if we want to make, if you want to make a new version of ChatGPT or a new version of Grok, you have to either be Sam Altman or Elon Musk and own 200,000, and that's actually the real number, 200,000 GPUs, all co-located on a server farm, right, somewhere. And Elon calls his Colossus, right? That's his personal training rig to make another version of Grok, right? And so that's pretty cool, but that also means nobody else can make a frontier model, right? That kind of sucks. So, but imagine what did Bitcoin do really well? It recruited all this insane amount of compute power from all over the world to secure the network. Again, 500 times larger than the nearest competitor supercomputer, right? Even now, Bitcoin absolutely dwarfs all AI. Like AI is like, "Merp," it's a little dot compared to this like Jupiter-sized, or sun-sized, Bitcoin compute network, right? It's still Earth's Mac Daddy of compute. So, well, that worked really. This incentivization engine thing worked really once. Bitcoin basically booted itself into existence through mining. Right? There was no company. There's no president of Bitcoin. There was just an incentive. Hi, try to guess the hash of the previous block, and you might win some Bitcoin if you're the fastest and the best at the contest, right? So Bittensor was like, well, that worked really well once for Bitcoin, but we should do the same thing, except make the mining programmable in the same way Ethereum made smart contracts, right? Like make the mining side of it programmable, and the emissions go to whoever solves this contest the best, right? So getting back to the Colossus, so imagine you want to do a decentralized Colossus, a Napsterized Colossus, right? Build like a Bitcoin mining network, but for training AI. Like, is that even doable? Well, that's what Subnet 3 Templar set off to try to do. And a
Or
few weeks
subnet
ago,
3 or subnet 4?
Subnet 3 Templar is
Okay.
Subnet 3. I apologize. I was looking at, I
Okay.
might have said 4. It is Subnet 3 Templar.
Okay.
So, and there's 128. So it's number 3. It's one of the oldest ones, obviously. They succeeded in training a 72 billion parameter model, which is roughly 1/300th of state of the art of a frontier state of the art model. But it was thought to be impossible to do. And there've been, and one of the co-founder, Jack, I can't think of his last name, but Jack, the co-founder of Anthropic, saw the announcement and he was like, who is doing this? What is this? I want to learn more about that. He's been tweeting about it, and he included it in the paper and said it is Earth's largest decentralized training run so far as he can tell, right? People thought this was impossible until Templar achieved it. And Chamath on the All In pod like a week and a half ago was discussing it with Jensen, and Chamath's words were like, it's a pretty insane technical feat. So it's turned a lot of heads to it, right? So that's an early signals subnet and has done extremely well. 404 Gen does text to 3D. And so if you play video games or you're in virtual worlds, the bulk of the cost of making those things is generating the art assets, right? So imagine just like with Grok, right? Imagine you could say, make me a machine gun that looks like that's green, right? And the AI generates the object, and that's what 404 Gen is. And it's text to 3D, and they very quickly have amassed Earth's largest library of 3D objects, 25 million objects, right? Because you make them with AI, right? So you just go
Yeah.
a lot faster. Um, so that's pretty interesting. And they're integrated into all these, like Unity engine, like the Unity editor. They basically got a bunch of points now that are they resell their services into the 3D editors. Um, there's Nova, which is AI pharma molecule discovery. So normally, finding a pharmaceutical molecule is sort of like finding the hash of the previous block, where you're just trying a bunch of things, right? So it's suitable for mining. So what Nova does is it basically tells its miners, hey, go out and try to find us a new pharmaceutical molecule. And they've had some successes where they have rediscovered things that already exist, and been like, oh, I found a hit, and it turns out that's a patented molecule already, so not something they can make money on. But the fact that it found it again proves that the method works, and it can move a lot faster, right? So Nova is one of those things that is one of those that could be a multi-billion-dollar company overnight, because they actually, once they find something, they go and sell the rights to that to to basically like a wet lab, which then takes it the distance and gets the FDA approval. Like Nova doesn't do that. It's sort of like selling the option to a movie to a studio, right? We'll sell the option to this molecule, and you can then do the wet lab work to find out whether it really works or not and get it approved. But that's very early signal, right? There's another one, Score, which is subnet 44, which does computer vision. So just it's giving AI the ability to understand what it's seeing. Like when you're in a Waymo, right? It knows what's a car and what's a person. Like it's good at it knows how to identify what it's seeing. Score is that, but broadly for all kinds of things. And they've already got customers. One of their big customers are amateur soccer or football in European terms teams that basically doing Moneyball type stuff by watching the playing of the players on that team. And because they're using, and the other thing I should point out is that all these Bittensor subnets, by and large, cost 1/10 what their centralized competitors are offering the same product for. And in many cases, the product quality is actually higher in Bittensor. Why? Because the miners are supplying the actual thing that you're then reselling, and the miners are competing with each other. There's 256 miners all competing to do the best and the fastest at all of these contests, right? So who supplies that for Score 44? Who supplies that understanding of what is being seen in the visual field? The miners do. The miners tweak the AI models that are understanding the vision, right? So, and they're all trying to one up each other. Why? So they can get subnet tokens, because the chain pays you, right? It's exactly how Bitcoin works. It's just done again and programmable.